MineTalks AI Mining Insight, powered by AI. And we are back with another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about Indonesia.
Okay.
And how they're really kind of quietly becoming a dominant force in the EV revolution.
No, interesting.
So, you always hear about like Tesla and all the, the big car companies.
Right, yeah, all the big names,
Yeah.
the established players.
But Indonesia is really quietly becoming a huge player.
Yeah, and they have been for, a while now. I think they've been very strategic about it.
Yeah.
Really using their sort of geological advantage, you could say,
Right.
and turning it into a real industrial strategy.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because it's really the combination of the two. So
Yeah.
the fact that they have all this nickel,
Right.
which we know is essential for EV batteries.
Absolutely. Nickel is,
Yeah.
Essential for a lot of these high-performance batteries that we're seeing in EVs these days.
Yeah, and they have so much of it.
So much.
I mean, they have the world's largest nickel reserves.
It's unbelievable how much nickel they have.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy when you look at the numbers.
Yeah, lay it on me.
So estimates put their reserves anywhere from 21 million tons
Wow.
to upwards of 52% of the entire planet's supply.
That's more than half.
I know, it's mind-blowing. And what's interesting too is it's not just like potential.
Right. It's not just sitting there.
Yeah, they're actually producing a ton of nickel.
Exactly.
So in 2023, they were responsible for 55% of global nickel mine supply.
Okay. So they're already the major player then.
Yeah, they're already there.
Yeah.
And projections say it's only going to increase.
Wow.
So by 2028, they're expected to be at 62%.
That's a huge chunk of the market.
It's huge. And it really, I think, makes them a country to watch.
For sure. For sure.
So, we talked about how much nickel they have, but the type of nickel deposits they have is also really important.
Okay. How so?
So most of their nickel is in these things called laterite ores.
Laterite ores.
Okay. And these are typically found relatively close to the surface.
Oh, so that makes them easier to get to.
Exactly. And cheaper to extract.
Right. Less expensive mining.
Yeah. So, open pit mining is really common.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And these deposits are mainly concentrated in a few key regions.
Which ones?
So you've got Central Sulawesi,
Okay.
Morowali, Obi Island, Wida Bay, and Papua.
So all kind of clustered together?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
So, they have this abundance of nickel,
Right.
but what's really interesting is what they're doing with it.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me more about that.
So a few years ago, they banned the export of unprocessed nickel ore.
Oh, wow. So they're not just shipping out the raw material anymore.
Exactly. And that's been a really smart move.
How so?
Well, it's basically forced foreign investors to set up shop in Indonesia.
If they want to get their hands on the nickel, they have to process it there.
Exactly. So instead of just exporting raw nickel, they're now attracting foreign direct investment.
Oh, so they're building up their own domestic industries.
That's right. They're developing their own processing industry.
So they're moving up the value chain.
Exactly.
Instead of just being a raw material supplier.
Yeah.
They're becoming more of a manufacturing powerhouse.
Exactly. And we've actually seen this work before.
Oh, really? Where?
So back in 2021, they did something similar with bauxite,
Okay.
which is used to make aluminum,
Right.
and they banned the export of unprocessed bauxite.
And what happened?
Well, their alumina output increased by like 162%.
Wow. So it really boosted their domestic production.
Yeah, it's a really effective strategy.
It sounds like it.
And it's clear that they're not just trying to be a raw material provider.
Right. They want to be more than just a
Yeah.
mine.
They want to transform their economy.
Add value, capture more of the profits.
Exactly. And to do that, they're really creating an attractive investment climate.
Oh, how are they doing that?
Well, they're providing legal certainty for mining companies.
Okay, so it's a stable, predictable environment.
Yeah, they're making sure that the rules are clear.
So investors know what to expect.
Exactly. And they're also requiring companies to do more exploration.
So they're ensuring a pipeline of future projects.
Yeah, they're not just focused on what's already been discovered.
Smart move.
Yeah, so all of this is really pointing towards a bigger goal.
What's that?
They want to become a major player in the entire EV value chain.
Wow, so from mining to battery to even car production.
Exactly. They're aiming for the whole thing.
That's ambitious.
It is, but they seem to be on track. And to achieve this, they're investing heavily in processing facilities.
Okay, what kind of facilities?
So they're investing in both pyrometallurgical and hydrometallurgical processing plants.
So they're covering all their bases.
Yeah, they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
And what kinds of nickel products do they make with these processes?
Well, they produce things like nickel pig iron or NPI,
Okay.
ferronickel or Fe, mixed hydroxide precipitate or MHP,
MHP.
and probably most importantly, battery-grade nickel sulfate.
Ah, so the stuff that actually goes into the batteries.
Right. And to really drive this battery push, they've established the Indonesia Battery Corporation.
The IBC, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's a joint venture between a bunch of state-owned enterprises.
So it's a pretty big deal then.
Oh, yeah, it has a lot of weight behind it.
And what exactly is their role?
Well, their main goal is to coordinate and accelerate the development of the entire EV battery supply chain in Indonesia.
Okay, so they're like the masterminds behind it all.
Yeah, they're the ones making sure everything runs smoothly.
So they're involved in everything from mining to processing to manufacturing.
And even recycling.
Wow, they really are covering the whole spectrum.
Yeah, and it's all about creating a synergistic industry.
So everything works together.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
want to maximize the value they get from their nickel.
Right. Make sure that most of those profits stay in Indonesia.
Yeah, and become a major production hub for EV batteries and EVs in general.
So not just for Indonesia, but for the whole region.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're thinking big.
Yeah, they definitely are. And all of this is attracting a lot of attention from global players.
Oh, really? Like who?
Well, for example, Hyundai is setting up their ASEAN manufacturing hub in Indonesia.
Wow. Yeah, are they planning to make EVs there?
Yeah, that's the plan.
So they're betting big on Indonesia.
Yeah, and there are others too.
Like who else?
Well, companies like Wuling are already making EVs in Indonesia.
Wow, so it's already happening.
Yeah, it's not just talk, it's actually happening.
That's impressive.
And on top of all that, the government is also trying to boost domestic demand for EVs.
Okay, how are they doing that?
Well, they're offering a bunch of consumer incentives,
Like what?
like tax exemptions.
Makes them more affordable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're also implementing local content requirements.
Oh, so they're making sure that a certain percentage of the EV components are made locally.
That's right. They want to support their domestic industry.
It's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
Create demand and supply at the same time.
Yeah, it's all very well thought out. And all of this is really having a big impact on the global supply chain.
Yeah, I bet.
So their nickel production is driving global primary nickel output.
Makes sense. They are the biggest player after all.
Right. And a lot of the nickel that China is producing is actually coming from Indonesia.
Oh, so they're relying on Indonesian nickel intermediates.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
just shows how important Indonesia is becoming.
They're really becoming a key part of the global supply chain.
Yeah, and especially for battery-grade nickel.
That's the stuff everyone needs.
Yeah, and they have these massive processing facilities, like the Lickin Indonesia nickel sulfate plant.
Okay, yeah, that one's a big one.
It's a huge facility.
And it's just one of many, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're building more all the time. And it's not just nickel, they're also looking at other battery materials.
Oh, like what?
Well, they're exploring the potential for producing manganese sulfate.
Okay, yeah, another key battery ingredient.
Right, so they're really trying to become a one-stop shop.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And beyond those materials, they have reserves of other important minerals, too.
Oh, yeah, like what else?
Well, they have cobalt, manganese, copper.
Oh, wow, so they're really well positioned.
Yeah, they have pretty much everything you need for the energy transition.
It's like they hit the jackpot.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And their cobalt production is actually expected to increase a lot.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it's often extracted as a byproduct of nickel mining.
Ah, so as they mine more nickels, they'll get more cobalt too.
Exactly.
That's smart.
Yeah, it's a nice little bonus. So, looking ahead, there are definitely some interesting trends to watch.
Okay, what are you thinking?
Well, for one, their control over global nickel mine supply is only going to get stronger.
Makes sense.
Right.
They're already the biggest player, and they're just going to keep growing.
Yeah, and demand for nickel from lithium-ion batteries is going to keep rising.
Yeah, that's only going to increase as EVs become more popular.
Exactly. So that's good news for Indonesia.
Definitely.
Though there might be a bit of a bump in the road around 2025.
Oh, why is that?
Well, there are a lot of new nickel projects coming online.
So we could see an oversupply of nickel.
Yeah, potentially, which could push prices down.
That's not great for producers.
Yeah, but in the long term, demand is still expected to be very high.
Okay, so it's just a temporary thing.
Yeah, it's not a major concern. And Indonesia is actually aiming to capture a big chunk of the global EV battery market.
How much are they hoping for?
They're targeting 7 to 19% by 2030.
Wow, that's a pretty wide range.
It is, but even the low end of that range is significant.
Yeah, that would make them a major player.
Exactly. But of course, with all this growth, there are some challenges too.
Yeah, like what?
Well, sustainability is a big one.
Of course, mining can have a big impact on the environment.
Yeah, and they need to make sure they're mining responsibly.
And what are they doing about that?
Well, the government is implementing measures to enhance sustainability.
Okay, like what?
They're focusing on things like water management, land revegetation after mining.
So trying to restore the land.
Yeah, and they're even creating artificial reefs from smelter slag.
Oh, wow. That's pretty innovative.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And they're also working on improving nickel traceability.
So they can make sure the nickel is being sourced responsibly.
Exactly. And all of this is really important for maintaining a stable nickel market.
Right. You don't want to have wild swings in prices.
Yeah, it's important to keep things balanced.
So overall, it sounds like Indonesia is really making some smart moves.
Yeah, they're definitely a country to watch. So to sum up our deep dive today, Indonesia is really becoming a driving force in the EV boom.
It's pretty amazing how quickly they've risen to prominence.
Yeah, and it's all thanks to their nickel reserves and their strategic government policies.
Right. They've really leveraged their resources effectively.
Yeah, they've gone from being a raw material exporter to a key player in the EV supply chain.
It's a remarkable transformation.
And for anyone interested in this space, it's definitely a story worth following.
I'll be keeping my eye on Indonesia, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too. So for you, our listener, we encourage you to keep an eye on Indonesia's policy changes.
Yeah, those can have a big impact on the market
Yeah, and watch how their processing infrastructure develops.
and how that influences the critical mineral supply chain.
Because what's happening there is really going to shape the future of the EV industry.
It's a fascinating case study.
It really is. Well, that's all the time we have for today's Mind Talks AI. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and stay sharp, because smart mining starts with smart insights.